Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy your side, so yeah, no, I really appreciate your time. How's it going? How's everything going your end?
Uh, I think it's lockdown at the moment, so it's very quiet. We are in the preparation of rapid testing for quite a while, but we don't really know when to start. So it's yeah, in a very big uncertainty at the moment.
But look, we'll get started, and I'll start by saying thank you so much for coming in and taking a part in this. And what I'd like to do, if possible, just for people who are listening, particularly for our members and people who possibly don't know who you are, as you know, many do, but if I could ask you just to introduce yourself and give a brief overview of who you are and what you're involved in and etc. For everyone who's listening.
Sure. So my name is Lutz Leichsenring. I'm the co-founder of a purpose-driven consultancy that is doing research and advocacy in nightlife. It's called Vibe Lab. I'm also, since more than 10 years now, the spokesman of the advocacy group in Berlin, the Berlin Club Commission. I'm there in a voluntary job, but doing this with a lot of passion. And we are also a big team that is doing this work now for many years. Since I'm in my early 20s, I'm related to nightlife. I was starting with German hip hop events. I had a club for 6 years. I had restaurants for 3 years, and in the recent years, I'm focusing more and more on the global advocacy work. So this what started kind of as a nucleus in Berlin, spread all over the world. It is now in 60 cities. This nighttime advocacy of night mayors and commissions all over the world, and you're obviously one part of it.
Mm.
And and so I was traveling a lot in the recent years. I was doing a lot of keynotes and workshops, it helped in the recent month. So first of all, we were able to do a lot of collaborative work in Berlin. We started a project that is also now global, the United We Stream, that we're going to talk about later. But we also started a global nighttime recovery plan that is meant to help cities to get a bit more movement and inspiration to get out of this crisis and look at nighttime not only on an economic perspective but also on a cultural and social perspective.
Amazing. And look, I commend you on your work. You've been doing an amazing job. The advocacy, the messaging, everything that I've seen. I mean, United We Stream, GNPR, all of the work that you've been doing has been absolutely amazing. And I have to commend you. And we've been lucky to be an active part in it and be very supportive. So thank you for that. So just to draw back, I mean, let's talk about sort of grassroots. How do you think the industry has coped with this pandemic so far? How do you think the nighttime economy is weighed up against this huge challenge at present?
You know, as much as I know the scene, I think we're very stuck because we are not able to really find alternatives. You know, our core business is bringing people together, present culture, and this is obviously one of the worst things you can do in a pandemic, to bring people together. So it's a dilemma, and but I think what we also showed is, in this crisis, that we bring people together and that we work together and we think about alternatives, and of course we use also our network towards politics and politicians to convince them in how essential our work is also for societies, especially in cities where you have a lot of individuals, people who don't have their family close, people who are maybe part of a LGBTQ community. It is so important to have these spaces, grassroots stages for artists, and in this crisis, it is a big threat that we lose of a lot of them, because it's if we don't get government help, it's obvious that we cannot survive this kind of long time where we have to pay rents, monthly costs. So there is need of support.
We are seeing some deep sort of issues around things like rent and all of these sort of standing costs, which I'm sure you have a similar situation in Germany. I mean, just talking through. I mean, Look, it takes some resilience to get through this, and we're quite aware that you know, we've got to keep a focus on, you know, maintaining and surviving this period, both economically and culturally, and it's really sort of signifying or putting into place the nighttime economy and the importance of that socio-economic or social environment that people possibly took for granted in some respects from the past. But what has inspired you since the crisis has hit Europe to keep driving on? And I know you've got a deep and wealth in understanding about the nighttime economy as a whole, but what has kept you inspired and driven to not only overcome a global position, but also drive forward within this difficult time to support and represent and help people moving forward, particularly in Germany, but I know you do it across Europe as well?
I think what is a big motivation as for somebody who is doing this advocacy work for more than 10 years now is that in the crisis, you have, first of all, you have people in your own scene that step out of their bubble, that finally see that advocacy work is so important, because it's always like you stay in your comfort zone as long as nobody is knocking the door. It can be a threat, you know, but now it's like a big threat, and so everybody is alert. So I think that is something which is very positive, that people step out of their bubble, engage, and also, and that is maybe more the political side. If you talk to politicians and to decision makers in city governments, they are more likely to listen at the moment. They just see that this is a crisis, and they also really don't have answers. And so they really want to learn and also find out if there are possibilities that they can help. I know that a lot of people need help at the moment, so it's not very likely that you get the biggest piece of the cake, but I think it's a big step towards a long-term relationship with governments, maybe in cities where there wasn't one before. So use that crisis to really step up, make your points, organize yourself, and then drive it. And it probably is a long run. It's more like a marathon. It's not something that you will succeed easily. But I think the cities that have already a commission or a night mayor in place are much more resilient. And of course, they're already known. They have strategies, they have papers, they have studies. It's easier for them to convince people, of course.
No, brilliant. And possibly something, and I hope you would agree with me here, Lutz, but I think one of the important things that has come out of this pandemic is the fact that there just seems to be a renewed level of community amongst the sector. There are more people working together. There are more people who potentially wouldn't have saw themselves working together, coming together to support on a mutual level. But as you say, it's just important. We have an opportunity here where we've got the attention of politicians, parliamentarians, different people from different governments, where we can represent and potentially, you're quite right, actually move forward in a way that we can draw them into some of the issues and have them as a long-term relationship. But what other things do you think have been positives out the back end of this, given the fact that it's a horrendous position? But what other things have you learned that have helped you try to understand and be able to move things forward in terms of Germany and the nighttime economy as a whole?
I think another positive aspect is, of course, that we haven't lost the space in Berlin yet. So I definitely can say this after so many months of lockdown and crisis and quarantine, that we still have saved the spaces. Doesn't mean that a lot of them are in big depth, and a lot of them are also maybe in a big threat. And when we reopen, we don't have tourists in the city, we don't have international artists booked. So there's like a lot of threat, but I think at the moment we can say that we hadn't had this huge shutdowns that you can obviously expect after so many months. I think what is an important topic also, that we now finally get into discussion: what is club culture and what is nighttime economy? You know, because when I say nighttime economy, I always say nighttime culture and nighttime community, because I think you only have a vibrant night if you have it cultural centered and also spotted for certain communities. Then it's really getting an energy and value. And that is our biggest problem, actually, because who do you talk to? You know, who is at the other side of the table? because it's basically everybody in governments. You have to talk to cultural departments, city development departments, economy, health. There's so many different stakeholders you have to talk to and find solutions with. It's really a problem. But what we also see, and that is very positive, that in the last couple months you see so many agreements on government level that club culture is a culture.
Yeah,
you can use so some of them are coincidentally decisions that were made or that were like court cases for many years, and now they made their decision, the so-called Berghain court decision, which says that that a club live DJ performance is also a concert, means it's culture. Yeah. And you pay less tax. You pay like 12% less VAT, which is enormous. Yeah. But it also showed that when we were applying for those emergency aid packages, that we had the same chances as theaters, private cinemas, and all these other cultural producers or stages. And that was also something that wasn't very clear before the crisis, that we are part of that. Yeah. Those packages or that piece of cake. And so I think that is also positive. You can see that there is an evolution happening and mind changing on the political level.
I think the interesting part, and as you say, I mean, we share a similar situation where it's very clear that we've got to go through many different departments. In the UK, we have obviously the business departments, and then we have the cultural departments, which is a constant battle. But you're quite right. I mean, within the UK, particularly with DCMS, we had to fight for electronic music to be an active part in that cultural funding position. And we won that sort of debate, and we continue to fight for that voice moving forward, which I think is important. But you are right, it is very, there is a disparity. There's lots of individuals sort of fighting, and there needs to be a consolidated position. So look, I'm going to come off sort of topic slightly now and talk about something which I think has been almost a global phenomenon in terms of the digital sort of output. But wanted to talk to you and find out a little bit more about United We Stream. I mean, fantastic vehicle for supporting culture, giving a digital output for people. How did the idea come about? Can you give us a bit of background on where it came from? Was it something that emanated from a social gathering like most good ideas, or where did that amazing opportunity under United We Stream come from?
Oh, it actually started in this room, in my living room. And it was unfortunately not in a personal conversation. It was a lot of phone calls. But on the day of the lockdown, we just needed to do something. And my position in the club commission is to be the spokesman, to do campaigns and PR and to get attention. And so we were something, do we do a donation campaign or do we something content driven, like do a protest or something? And protesting is obviously not a very good idea to bring people on the street when you have a pandemic. But so we had to do something different. And a lot of the online petition pages and all these kind of things. And we need to have something that is much more powerful. And I think our biggest advantage that this turned into a success was that we started on the day of the lockdown and we launched 5 days later. Yeah. So, and we have one of the major cultural TV channels, Arte Concert, on board, which is, when you think about it, of course, also related, of course, they didn't have any program because on the day of the lockdown, there was no concert anymore. So what should they broadcast? But on the other hand, they had to have a lot of trust into the organization, Club Commission, to give us everyday stream time, basically on their main program. Mm-hmm. And so that really helped. And with Arte on board, it also helped to get artists easier involved, because they liked that this was like a brand behind, and we basically built up together with a lot of reach, and connecting a virtual stage in an empty club with an artist presenting art in front of nobody it's just a powerful picture. And this also took off in the national media. A lot of artists joined that wanted to. We had like, on the first couple of days, we already had 30 clubs lined up. They want to be part of this. And artists were reaching out to us, of course. But the program was also curated by the clubs. So we wanted the clubs to represent their friends and family in art and give them a stage. And that worked really well. We gathered, I think, almost 300,000 euros in the first 2 or 3 weeks. How like campaigns are, in the beginning you have the attention and then it goes, it becomes less and less. But a lot of cities joined. We have now 98 cities that we were streaming from. We have in the UK, we have Brighton, we have Manchester, which is really big. They are almost as they earned almost as much money in donations than we did in Berlin. So Manchester was doing really great. London recently also joined. So you see, it was global. It is something that is not driven by commercial interests, which is also very important for a lot of players out there. Where do they give their content, on what kind of platform? So we also said, this is kind of a tool that we give to you, that you help yourself. Obviously, it's not, for many regions, not a tool where you can make money, because the idea of donating is nothing that is learned in all of the countries that we're in. We're in Asia, we're in Latin America. There are also people who would like to go out, who don't even have a job at the moment. So asking them for donations is also not the best idea. So saying that, we earned in total, I think, 1.5 million euros. We had more than 50 million views. And the whole United We Stream project now turned into a non-for-profit organization with an independent board. And yeah, we're trying to keep up the content productions. We try to give stages. Our aim is basically to just stream music and give them a presence and bring. And I think that is, from my point of view, a very important part of it. It is also uniting a scene locally, because giving people a local digital stage is much easier than gathering them in one room. And so we also give really the opportunity to certain regions to really say, hey, let's unite in this crisis. Let's get together. Let's cross-post. Let's support each other. Big clubs, small clubs, big artists, small artists, and so forth.
Listen, it's a phenomenon. I mean, just for everyone's interest, I mean, 98 countries. Do you know round about the level of money that has been raised across those platforms as a whole? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I think it's more than 1.5 million euros now. So it is not the money that will save the club culture, but it is money that maybe helps in an urgent situation, that you can maybe pay a certain rent or get the attention of governments, which is helping in a lot of cities, that they then see, oh, it's digital, it's something, from the culture, it fits some of our support programs. So we support in this because it's a united approach. It's not just one individual that is applying, it's really a group. And that makes it easier for governments also support something like that.
It's been an amazing campaign, and I know Sasha Lord, who sits on our board, cannot speak highly enough about it, and has been hugely supportive. And I know the amount of money.
He's great. He's amazing. He was like, he bringing the mayor into a stream. He brought like the whole, like, the last 30 years of clubbing in Manchester on stage. So Hacienda, it was amazing.
No, and it's like you say, it's been amazing, a phenomenon. So I hats off to you. That's an amazing thing that you have put together there, and collectively as an industry, and definitely from our perspective in the UK, you've helped thousands of businesses and individuals. So thank you. Just going back into clubs and club communities. I mean, what does the future of sort of German club scene, German club community look like now? Where do you see things moving forward? Is there discussions around future proofing? I know you mentioned rapid testing, which is a similar scenario that the UK are looking at, but as you know, with that has lots of challenges and public health issues that we have to jump over and jump through hoops to get to. But, you know, just taking the gloves off and coming back, how do you see the club sector future-proofing itself in Germany as a whole?
What I think now that we have a bit of light inside, that we can move forward and know there is a vaccine out, and in a certain time we probably came over this crisis. I think at that moment we have to change the approach and change the strategy from making decisions that are really top down and, you know, causing collateral damage. When you say lockdowns, curfews, prohibition, like all these like big things where you don't really know if this is based on data or is this just because you don't know what to do. I think it is because if you're running a venue, and I don't mean just a club, it can be a bar, it can be a restaurant, can be any venue or a theater. If you're running a venue, you have to create a safe space. And at the moment, or for many months, you had a toolbox of basically 2 or 3 tools. That means distancing, mask, ventilation, and we also didn't know if they are all working indoors with dancing and stuff. So there is no really proof for it. And then maybe outdoor, because we also learned that outdoor is way safer than doing things indoor. But that were the tools that you have to make a safe space. And as soon as the numbers were rising, you got shut down because, you know, the tools didn't work, or there were not enough evidence. So I think by having rapid testing, we can change the approach from top down to bottom up, to create safe areas, to create safe spaces with individual concepts. There will be no perfect fit for everybody, but it will be that clubs can play an important role because they are empty spaces in the city center at the moment, and they can provide space for testing, any kind of testing. If it's gargling, where you have to just swallow and spit it out, or you take the swab, and like all these different testing methods which come out need to be placed somewhere where you can make a safe test. And in a case of positive testing, that you also can isolate somebody very easily and make sure that this person is, you know, going into quarantine very fast. And so our approach at the moment is, as soon as the numbers are stabilized and maybe we can really reopen, that we can keep that kind of number low by opening spaces, and every space then has also another option in their toolbox, rapid testing. And I think for that, rapid testing needs to be affordable. It needs to be so affordable, maybe even free, that people who want to just go in a bar for a beer, that they don't think about paying 25 or 30 or 50 euros for a test. You know, they should just do it without thinking, because it makes the whole environment safe. And secondly, you have to make sure that maybe in a theater or in concert hall, we're still working with mask and distance, because people sit, and this was a safe way of doing it. And not everybody likes to be tested or has the money to be tested. So it's also, you know, every space has to make it their own decisions how to move forward. But we have to create options. At the moment, we don't have the options yet. And I think that clubs can move forward because governments, and I think that's a fair deal, look into the vulnerable parts of societies first, the elderly, the sick, and threatened groups. But that doesn't mean that we have to just wait. You know, we can be active. We can organize ourselves. We can make sure that in a community, in a local neighborhood, we create a safe environment, and bring everybody, you know, into the conversation, and make sure that we also, you know, we also have a responsibility towards our workers, towards the people that want to go out, that we can also provide safe spaces. That's what we always say. We provide safe spaces, so we have to do it at this time.
Without a doubt, and it's definitely the narrative over here. I mean, many of the businesses have spent an inordinate amount of money creating COVID safe spaces as we present it, but safe spaces outside of COVID are as important, you know, as you're quite aware. So how do you think clubs are going to be future-proof? Do you think that there is going to be a legacy of digital products out there alongside physical product for people to experience? In other words, do you think that digital will now start playing a bigger part in clubs or digital experience in different ways? And have you seen any innovations that potentially might sort of drive a different narrative than we've possibly seen in the UK?
I'm not sure. I think it's maybe on the long run, because you should never say never. There's technology development in the last couple of years that we are just stunned. But I think replacing the personal contact, the seeing, smelling, talking, individuals coming together is something that is really, really hard to replace with technology. You know, so and I don't know if it's healthy actually to keep people distanced for post COVID. But if you also look into like a production like United We Stream, it is a very sad thing. It is an artist in an empty space with no audience at all. And this is a TV production, you know, it's not a cultural experience, you know, it's presenting art, but it's a show. And I think that is something that we also have to understand, that if we only value the cultural part of club culture, yes, we got it. You know, we have an artist presenting his art or her art. Yeah. But if you also want to value the cultural and the social and the economic perspective, I think it's a bit more tricky, because economically it doesn't really, it raises some donations, but there's not a business model yet. And on a social part, I said I'm doubting that this is replacing any social interaction. So to answer your questions, I think it will be part of club culture or night culture for sure, because it is a nice and a good way. And I said the many positive things about such a streaming platform, but it will be only adding to what is already there. So yeah. I remember when I was consulting, or we had a project, a study in New York conducted a couple of years ago, in a time when Ariel became director of nightlife. I had a call from a institute that did a survey on this topic. They also conducted a study. They asked me, what about the virtual space? If we don't have the physical space in our cities, what about the virtual space? And I don't want to make it that easy to cities. You know, you think you can revalue all the space you have and put shopping malls and condos and whatever you think that is bringing more value to your city, and you put all the art in the digital space. That's not going to happen. You know, so we will definitely oppose such an idea to move art and culture into digital spaces, because we can sell the space for more. So I think we also have to be a bit careful that we don't change a narrative that is maybe already in creation.
I agree with you. I think the physical space, the physical experience is very, very difficult to replace. I'm just intrigued to see how things are, and we're not sure what the future holds. I think, like you say, there is a long game. And I think digital experience, as it develops with VR and all the different things that are there, potentially will start sort of potentially having a place. But, you know, that physical experience, that atmosphere, that exhilaration, all those things that are housed within what we represent for many in different environments, I think is critical to people's well-being as much as anything else.
And maybe I just to add this, we also see waves in societies, you know, and even if there is a lot of enthusiasm about a certain technology, maybe the next generation is turning around and say, oh, we want to have it real life again. So I think we also shouldn't think that this is a straight line towards technology. It also a wave.
So yeah, I mean, similar. I mean, it's like saying going back to vinyl, isn't it?
Exactly.
I thought the vinyl was gone, and then vinyl comes back in.
Or canned food, you know.
Yeah, no.
Which was the super newest technology sometimes.
Yeah, no, completely. So just, and I want to talk slightly about the economics and the government input. Just so people know, because as you can appreciate, I mean, everyone's very housed in their own sort of domain and restrictions and government. Can you give us a bit of an overview of what's happened in Germany? Just a short overview. It just gives us an understanding of the support, the restrictions, and the current situation for nighttime communities, etc., that are going on in Germany at present.
Yeah, so starting with the lockdown, we really had very fast conversations with all levels of politics. So that was very positive. And of course, United We Stream helped to get to the table of the health ministry and the economic and like federal and local level, we were really well prepared to have these conversations because they knew us and it was an easy task. I think the problem that we then faced was how can we really get something that is also reaching everybody who's in need very fast. And that is really a tricky part to do, like these emergency aid programs. We learned a lot on the way, you know, who fell through the cracks on the way, because at the moment you say, oh yeah, that works. And then, oh no, it didn't work. So that was a lot of adjusting over the month. In the beginning, there was a lot of basically tools that were already in place in German government. The short work allowance. I don't know if this is a UK thing as well, where you can apply as an employer that your people get laid off but still being employed, and they get 60 to 80% of their income. So that was a really good tool because, you know, at least 50% of your success of a venue is your people, and if they have to find a different job, they're gone, and your engine that was running for many years is then you have to start all over again. So keeping the workers is definitely, or the employees was very important from the beginning. So we are really happy about that. Then there was a Berlin initiative that it was really helpful because they said also the self-employed get 5,000 euros.
Yeah.
And you know, for somebody who's self-employed and lost all their income as a graphic designer, bartender, whoever was in this field or technician, that they can apply for money, and they got it 2 or 3 days later on their bank account was super helpful. But you know, I talked about falling through cracks. A lot of them then realized, oh, this is only money they can spend for business expansion.
Oh, right.
So buying food and paying your car, maybe you use that also for your business, but that wasn't something that can be covered with that money. So that's also then that we had to learn. So the government also did another 5,000 euro program later this year, and then they learned and changed that. So you know, but there was a lot of course, a lot of questions. What happens if you get a tax review and you show that you bought food with that money? Then we had several loans that were that could be applied for, but loans are always a problem for venues because you usually don't have a very long contract. But if you have a loan that you have to pay back for 10 or 20 years and you don't have a venue anymore, it doesn't really help you. And a lot of cultural, the more serious, I think, like in Germany or in Berlin especially, the more you focus on your booking and your curation, the less revenue you have. The less revenue you have. So they're like more or less plus minus every year. They don't really make a lot of money, and you don't really get a loan in that kind of situation. So loans were also a problem. And then the Berlin government started a program that was focusing on private cultural venues and private cultural producers, such as theaters, private cinemas, and so forth, but also the clubs. They really needed the help, and it was 30 million. This was already, they already launched it 2 or 3 times over this year already. So this kind of program is probably the best one we had, because you could apply for your rents, you could apply for covering your monthly insurance costs and stuff like that. So everything which is monthly could be covered by that. Although if you had already got a loan, you could not apply for that money anymore. So if you had, this is liquidity help. So if you had already money on the bank, they said, oh, you have 100K on your bank, so use that first before you apply for money. So that was, of course, a problem because they didn't even know how to pay back the 100K and didn't get any help anymore. So yeah, we have, so these are like the fights that we have. I would say we are still in a very comfortable position when I see how other cities are dealing with this pandemic all over the globe. But still it's still a big challenge from day to day.
No, thanks for that. And just, I mean, it's interesting because all of those small nuances are very similar to the UK. And while we, sometimes the British press definitely present Germany are doing many more cultural pieces. They don't hear of the small nuances that exclude or present challenges in terms of financial support. So
one big problem, for instance, were the booking agencies.
Yeah.
because booking agencies were not considered as culture. They
Wow.
were service agencies, and they didn't have any support. So so booking agencies really fell through all the cracks. They only had like loans and getting social security basically to survive.
And we have similar things over here, to be quite honest. I mean, we've got about 3 million excluded workers, freelancers that are in that position. And similarly, we have quite a few sort of sole trader sort of company directors that are also excluded from this. So there are many challenges, and I think what I appreciate. I mean, I think you and me are both in a position where we're trying to plug gaps regularly and talking regularly to government officials about it. So, just in terms of the comparatives, I mean, as you go around and you talk to many different countries similar to ourselves, have you seen anything that you potentially would have liked to have seen in Germany that hasn't happened, that has happened in different countries, both economically and culturally, that you think is a really strong model that could have benefited the sector as a whole?
Although I must say we had positive experience this summer. I think we could be much faster and more supportive, also from the society, not just from governments, to use outdoor space.
Yeah.
Outdoor, we just knew that this is the only way to really gather on a fairly safe way. And it was still not easy. It was still a hard nut to crack to have certain outdoor events going, and extending the opening hours and all these kind of things were still like very limited, and neighbors, and they have to sleep, and all these kind of discussions, which are totally fine, but we are also in a crisis and pandemic, and then maybe you go to bed an hour later. We also have to kind of negotiate with residents and with governments, but there was not a lot of support, and from that side, using outdoor space, I think cities like Vilnius were really fast forward, opening up the whole public space for restaurants and bars. I traveled to Lisbon, where they also had a very similar approach, that you could use the whole street basically for your outdoor dining. I think we could have been much better and faster with this. But I think we are very well prepared now for next year. So so as soon as we have spring, we will get back to this conversation, and we will be very well prepared.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. And what's the situation with the festive period and New Year's Eve? Because without a doubt over here, New Year's Eve is presenting some concerns, particularly on the back of the many of the venues being closed or limited over here in terms of hours. What's the narrative or the feeling in Germany about how that's going to affect and how people or public are going to react to it?
Well, the venues, restaurants, bars, clubs are closed at the moment. We're in a lockdown, and it will stay like that until mid of January at least. But there is some allowance that people go out of their lockdown into family gatherings, but maximum I think 5 or 10 people.
Yeah.
So it's limited, and of course it's a discussion. Do we really have to celebrate in this kind when everybody is like in a lockdown situation? Why do we have to do this? But it's I think it's a fair discussion that we can have, but we could definitely think about also bringing elderlies back to the families for a day. I think it's also fair to say.
Do you think, and just one of the last questions, and then I have a penultimate question for you, if that's okay. Obviously in the UK, you hear of the illegal parties and illegal events that take place. And what we've seen is many of the warehouses that have been subject to being lost because of the pandemic and failing businesses being converted into spaces for electronic music events and etc. Is that something Germany's facing as well, or is there any concerns over New Year's Eve that potentially these sort of events are going to take place and could compromise the sort of future developments in terms of rapid testing and coming out of lockdown?
They canceled all the fireworks. I think there is not a lot of New Year's, to be honest. It will be very restrictive. I'm not sure what people are doing, but I think the government knows that people will still do some gatherings, but they also then say we still have a lockdown afterwards, at least for 2 weeks, that in case that you get infected, that this is like a time you stay home.
Yeah.
They also want to extend the vacation time as well, the vacation period. So, to have these 2 weeks. Yeah, I think it will be a tough time now through the winter. I think we agree on that. And we just have to go through January and February.
Yeah. Okay. No, and Lutz, thank you so much. And I think there's just one last question, and it's more of a hand across the divide from sort of Germany, Berlin. What message would you give to the community in terms of our sector from Germany to the UK in terms of resilience and keeping safe? What message would you give them today, just to focus them on getting out of this very difficult situation?
Stand together. Really, don't start to divide yourself. Don't question all the political decisions, which then divide yourself in your community. I think at the moment, we also know that being a politician is not an easy job. I don't want to be in that position to make those tough decisions, really. So I think it's really about what can we make in our environment to make things better, to make things safe, and to create new ideas. We are the most progressive part of society, so we also have to come up with ideas. We have to bring them to the table, and we have to have a critical distance to decision makers, but we also have to be constructive, So, I think the worst thing what can happen is that we had this kind of unification in the beginning, and then we are in a big division again. I don't think that would be a good thing. So let's get through this. It's gonna be a tough couple months upcoming, but I think then we are also getting back to not normal, maybe even to something that is better, hopefully.
Thank you, Lutz, and amazing. And I'll sort of bring it to a close, but thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming on and talking to us. And I think the interesting part is I think this will probably enlighten quite a few people of what's going on in Germany and some of the similar challenges that are happening around the world at the moment. So
thank you. And you're doing a great job in UK. I think we also look over the sea and see what's happening in UK, and I think you're also well heard. I mean, the voice of the scene in UK is very strong, and we also learn a lot from them. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Lutz. And as I say, I mean, hopefully you'll have an amazing Christmas and with family and New Year. So, okay.
You too.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's like you say, I think what we'll do is we'll sort of edit this down, Lutz, and I'll send you a copy of it, exactly what we're doing, to make sure you're happy with it. But hopefully those questions weren't too
no, super interesting, really good.
I think the big thing is people, like I say, it's almost like they've created their own bubble in their own sort of country, and possibly not viewing everyone having the same problems, because they only hear, I mean, the headline yesterday was a big fund being set aside for German culture. They didn't talk about the criteria or the caveats or the nuances.
I mean, one of the things that is also obvious that a lot of this money is not being paid out yet, and that also shows that the criteria is maybe too strict or not really working.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Well, it's like you say, I'm sure you've got a busy day. So thank you so much for your time. And
take care, man.
Let's keep talking. And hopefully when things clear, I'm going to see if I can get you over, because we are going to do some physical sort of conferences soon. I'd love to get you over as a guest speaker at some point.
Would love to. Anytime.
Amazing. All right.
Yeah,
Be safe.
Take care. Have a nice weekend also.
And you. Bye.